to order and start the weekly meeting of the Rotary Club of Wausau. Any announcements to start? I've got a couple, but I'll see if anybody's got anything to start us out with. Debbie, do you have anything you need to cover? Okay.
This is Gayleen. I do.
All right.
So I did stop in at Bull Falls. I dropped off some of the posters and also entry forms for the reindeer run. I have a stack sitting at my office. I would appreciate to be able to have those distributed. So what's the best way of getting it out to our members so that they can post it at their workplace? I have it posted here at the Town of Red Mountain Municipal Center. And plus I did hand it out at Bull Falls, put them on the tables, put some entry forms out, and I had also asked if they could post it.
Gayleen, do you have it electronically where it could be emailed, even though it's not on the larger size paper? That way you could print it out and post it in your workplace. Is that doable?
I think so. I can double check on the last PDF that we did to make sure it's the correct one.
If we just email the PDF to everybody, they could take it from there probably.
Okay. But I do have, we did have a donation. Someone did pay to have those printed out. So if there's anybody who would like to save on color printing, I do have them available here at the Municipal Center. So please let me know how I can get those out. I can certainly, I don't know if gyms are necessarily, the fitness clubs used to be the place to drop some of those off. Does anybody else have any suggestions or anybody want to volunteer to take some?
I could keep a stack here at the conservatory. It's a little bit more central if you'd like.
Okay.
Pop in and grab one.
Gayleen, I'll swing by to pick up a half a dozen, and then, I would encourage all the members that are on Facebook to, do a post and share it, get the word out.
That's where that electronic copy would come in handy too.
Yeah.
I'll send that out after. I'll try to get that out today yet.
Okay. Hey, Debbie, I'll pick up yours and drop it off at your office.
So Debbie, should I just drop it off at the conservatory or?
Well, Patrick just said he'd grab them.
Yeah, Gayleen, I'll swing by this afternoon and I'll pick up Debbie's and drop it off at her office.
Okay, I have two separate piles because actually I'll have one waiting for the sponsorship committee as well. So there'll be two packets. I'll just make sure somebody out in front knows that. But yeah, if anybody can post it in at their office, that would be great. Registration is open. So we are getting a few that are coming in, and I think people are excited that we are trying to make an attempt to do this in person. But again, there is no timing. There is spreading out of people. And again, the next part of this, which I'd like to get wrapped up this week if I can, is there's a app called Sign Up Genius. And I will be sending out, Deb, if you can assist with me to get that out to the membership. And then we'll ask for volunteers because it is low key and people who are sensitive to the situation. We have definitely places for you to volunteer that you don't necessarily have to be in contact with anybody. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks for all your efforts, Gayleen.
Gayleen, are you getting this out to Dennis so we can push it out on social media as well, including that sign up link that you're talking about?
Yep, I will do that with Debbie. When I send off the PDF to Debbie, I can copy Dennis in on that.
Okay. Other announcements?
Oh, I did think of one other thing, Matt. I'm sorry. Bell ringing is coming up. I have a meeting with the Salvation Army on Wednesday, so I will know more about what that's going to entail this year. And then I'll be sending out a sign up for that soon.
Okay. Great.
Man, I don't know if this is the most appropriate time to say this, but I would just like to thank the Youth Rotars for being here this month. Attendance has been excellent. It's just a bizarre time we live in, but thank you for being part of our club and our meetings. And as we mentioned, the first Monday that you attended, we hope that someday you will settle in a community, and when you look to give back and you join a service organization, you'll look back at your experience here and say, you know what, I'm going to check out the local Rotary Club. So wish you all the best the rest of this school year. Thank you for representing your school so positively, and I hope to see you again in the future.
I agree. Thank you, Dr. Peck. Okay, well, for those that were on the call a little early, we'll give, I see Dennis is back. We'll give a little bit of an update on our Pints for Polio event that happened over the weekend. We're fortunate that we've got, you know, one of the leaders of that effort from the Early Birds Club, and that's the president of that club, Dave Anderson. So, but Dennis, you've got a little bit of information. You can maybe fill the club in on how it went. At least our initial thoughts on how it went.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my internet connection just dropped, so I'm using my cell phone now. Hopefully it's okay. I think the event was very successful. Taking a look at just like our Facebook posts, you know, from the early birds that I shared the a link to, we got about 400 views. Throughout the event, I think we consistently stayed about having 20 people online watching the virtual concert. And I think we overall did a good job. And Dave, I think you want to report on the numbers. I think we received about $1,500 for the noon club. But I'll let Dave share a little bit more on the event. They were on site. Both Matt and Dave were on site, and they can probably share a bit more about the event.
Yeah, I can certainly take a shot at that, and yeah, Dave's been really good about kind of keeping tabs on the dollars and cents. And at this point in time, it looks like grand total of cash contributions. Oh no, that includes in kind, doesn't it? So grand total is about $5,700 that we raised and had donated in kind. And when some of that's in kind, like the bands didn't charge, for example. But when it all shakes out, it's going to mean about $1,500 at this point in time to credited to our club as our club's contribution to the Pints for Polio cause. So that's pretty good for a first event, and one that had to get put on in a virtual way rather than a live way. I really think it's going to be a good kind of jumping off point for a long-term event that can really do some good things, and maybe even bring not just the Wausau clubs together, but potentially even more of the Central Wisconsin clubs together. There's been some discussion about that, and I know Pat Pillar from the Early Birds Club is looking for opportunities to kind of get our Central Wisconsin group together. So Sean, thanks to you. You stepped up and did as usual a great job as the MC, and Sean, that stuff just comes naturally to Sean. So he did a great job, and I think held it together really well. And certainly we're fortunate to have Dave Anderson on the line today as a speaker, but he deserves kudos, really, as many kudos as we can get, because without his leadership, this wouldn't have come together. So thanks to you, Dave, for all you did. I don't know if you've got any additional comments, your reactions to the event. Feel free.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that I'm really pleased with the outcome. We actually exceeded we kind of revised our goals a little bit when we went from an in-person event to a virtual event, knowing that it would be challenging to pull off a virtual event. But we actually exceeded our overall goals in terms of how much we raised collectively for Pints for Polio. So I was really pleased with that. And I have to say, I was really pleased with the committee effort that went into this. And I want to thank Matt and Dennis and Sean for being as active on the joint planning committee as we were. And in a lot of ways, I was going to say this as we kicked off our program, but I'll throw it in now, kind of on a personal level, I've really appreciated the working relationship the Early Birds have had with the Noon Club this year, really going back to the 2 COVID-19 grants we've been successfully in getting. And thank you, John Townsend and Jeff, for your help with that. I think my big lesson of being involved in Rotary over the years is that you can accomplish so much more by working together, both locally as well as within the district, and even going beyond that into the zone and beyond. And I think what we've done this year has been absolutely phenomenal, despite these incredible challenges that both of our clubs have been confronted with COVID-19. As long as I've got the floor, I'm just going to indulge me for another personal comment. I really want to thank the Noon Rotary. As many of you know, I started my Rotary career as a member of your club. And it was through my experience as a member of your club that I became acquainted with District 6220 and kind of started learning the ropes a little bit. And some of you may be aware that I have the good fortune now of being our district governor nominee. And that wouldn't be the case had it not been for the great foundation that was laid through my involvement with your club. So I just want to thank all of you for what you've done for me as we move forward in Rotary at the district level. So I just wanted to say thanks for all of that. Thanks, Matt. Sorry, didn't mean to talk so much.
Thanks, Dave. Kudos again to you. And just, it's not too late, by the way, I'll just kind of run through where these contributions, how they were made. So there were contributions that you could make online through PayPal. There were contributions you could make direct to the Rotary International Foundation for the Polio Plus Fund. There was like a cash jar at Bull Falls and that sort of thing. Then Bull Falls, as you know, was contributing $1 per pint and $4 per growler during the event, and even in the lead up to the event. It's too late for that. I don't think we could get Mike to pony up anymore on that deal. But you can still probably buy growlers from him. I'm sure he'd sell you one. And then the in-kind contributions as well, obviously. So, and then some auction items as well. Dave donated a nice stay at his family's place in Niagara, and there were some other contributions as well. So, I think that the concerts are going to be playing periodically, and you can still donate in the in the weeks to come if you so choose. So if you didn't get a chance or were otherwise engaged this weekend, look for that opportunity. So any questions? Okay, couple other quick announcements. Now I see we've got some folks here, so that's good. First of all, I see Jim Campbell is he's sitting in front of what must be a picture of him in his younger days or something. Is that right, Jim? Is that what's going on?
Not exactly. That's a happy dollar involved in that picture.
Ah, okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, I've got something for you, Jim, and this is quite an honor, I would say. So this is a pin that came to me at my house, and I was, I was getting some kind of kudos or something. No, absolutely not. This is a pin for Jim's Paul Harris Fellow recognition +4. So for the Youth Rotars, Paul Harris Fellow. Paul Harris is the founder of Rotary. There's an award named after him. If you contribute $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation, you become a Paul Harris Fellow. Jim Campbell's seen that $1,000 and raised it by 4. So, Jim, great job. And quite frankly, I had to look again because I thought Jim might be already beyond 4.
I am.
You
Actually, I have 8.
You have 8. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, even
because-
better.
All my kids and all my grandkids, except my granddaughter, are Paul Harris Fellows.
I thought that was the case. And so I'm looking at this and it says Paul Harris Fellow +4. Now, maybe is it 2 for 1 kind of a deal or something? Or they're a few years behind on their mailing of the pin. But I've got your pin.
Thank you.
Right here,
Thank you.
and we'll get it to you.
Thank you.
And then I understand there's another recognition that I'm not as close to, but John Townsend is also a multiple-time Paul Harris Fellow, and he's got, at least we think we've got one Debbie's got for John. So John, congrats to you as well. All right. Any other announcements before we move to happy and sad dollars? Okay. JB Chadwick has been kind enough to offer to do happy and sad dollars today. So JB, the virtual red coat and the floor are yours.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to do happy and sad dollars. I'm going to throw in my first happy dollar. I learned over the last couple of months there's a thing called baby moon. And a baby mooning is when a young couple are about ready to have a child go and get away for a little bit. So this weekend, my wife and I had a boomer moon as we got away for a little bit as baby boomers. And I'm putting a happy dollar in for that. We had a nice weekend together. So, but any other happy dollars first?
JB, can we ask where you went?
Yeah, it's Chippewa Falls, the great, wonderful location of Chippewa Falls, Hampton Inn, and a couple of restaurants.
Very nice. Well, that's good. That's good.
Jim.
I have 2 happy dollars. One, enjoyed the concert immensely the other day with a growler of beer, of which I drank more than I should have. So I slept really good that night. But I won the adult beverage of my choice from Timekeepers, their bourbon, which I'm looking forward to trying. I never have. I've been told it's quite good. And then, of course, this picture in the background, the young man standing next to the flag on the far left is my number 2 son, Paul Charles, who was a Rotarian with the Early Birds when he was living in Wausau, competed on the world stage, world competition for bodybuilding on Saturday in Liberty, Missouri. And in the tall heavyweight class, he took a 4th, which he is immensely proud of. I mean, it's world competition. So that's why I had to put that picture of him up on the stage. So that's another happy dollar. Thank you.
Very cool. Any other happy dollars?
I've got a happy dollar. So this weekend, I finally went through my Iwo Jima boxes of stuff from my dad and his experience in World War II. And, I just have to tip my hat to any serviceman, and particularly Marines. You guys are so there's a happy dollar for all our veterans.
Nice, thank you. Anybody else?
JB.
Yeah. Oh, John?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to jump in. A couple things. One, I maybe could have done this during announcement time, but thought I'd throw a happy dollar in this way, just to give you guys all an update, as Dave alluded to a little bit a while ago about our COVID grant. Where are things? It sort of goes on in the background, and where we are at this point is that all the dollars from both clubs and their matching have arrived with Jeff over at United Way for the Hunger Coalition, and we're working with Ben Lee, the lead party, helping in the work of distributing all the food that will be purchased by $6,336 of the combined club contributions, both grant and matching. And Ben has been working with 3 schools, Colby, Edgar, and Mosinee, And I believe that probably will get rolling here pretty soon and provide at least 100 kids weekend food from, I think, the beginning of November all the way through the end of the calendar year. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for Jeff, certainly for Rotary for the grant, and for all of you for supporting this special effort. It's just another example of service in action I think we could all be proud of. The second announcement, I'm going to throw another $10 in for the Pints for Polio, if Deb can make that accounting work, just in recognition for the kind of energy that was displayed by the leaders of both clubs, both all those members present here that Dave acknowledged, plus those that were also involved in the Early Bird Club to get this out. I don't know that I've seen such a successful degree of joint energy and display. Sean, I was particularly excited about all your MC work, ad-libbing and doing such a great job. I mean, there's so many, Dennis with his talent. I mean, it was just a model of super enthusiasm and for a wonderful cause. So I want to pitch in 10 for that because I am seriously impressed by all of your efforts. Thank you so much.
Even though I failed by giving Jim Campbell the bourbon, I know that was a mistake on my part. I tried. It was what the numbers said, so I had to go with it.
I'm going to throw in some happy dollars too. Saturday was a very exciting day for me. $1 for my father, who I'm very excited to say is still with me, celebrated his 81st birthday. My youngest grandson also celebrated his first birthday on Saturday, so they share birthday. And Saturday morning, I found out that my only niece and her husband are expecting their first baby. So I'm going to throw in $1 for each of those.
Very cool.
I was going to throw one in, JB, as well. Thank you, Deb. Mine does not have the existential punch that yours does, but the Dodgers are ahead in the World Series. And it was a great event. I stopped by, made an in-person cameo at Bull Falls Brewery. I drank a root beer and donated $5 to the polio, Pints for Polio. And I thought it was a really well-executed event. It was great to see everybody. Didn't recognize anybody. I think they were all from the Early Bird Club, but it was a great event. So how about put me down for $5, please, for all that.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody else? About sad dollars.
JB, allow me to throw a sad dollar in, please. Hate to end these things with a bit of a downer, but I would just ask, maybe if you all are people of any kind of prayer or faith, to offer up some prayers for my son and his wife, who both came down with COVID. One is a healthcare provider, the other one works for the library. They're doing pretty well. They're homebound, but it is tough when it hits that close to home, and it certainly gives you the up close and personal impact of the 220-some thousand people who have died and the many, many more who are contracted. So it's a scary, amazing thing, and it's gives you pause for thinking, but I appreciate any prayers you'd be willing to offer on their behalf.
Any other sad dollars? Thank you for sharing, John. All right, Mr. President, looks like it's back to you.
Okay, thanks, JB. Appreciate it. So we'll turn to our program now. I think Jeff Sargent is going to introduce them. And I don't know if that will be by name or moniker, but I'm hoping it's moniker. So.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I'm introducing two bald guys. And there could be more than two on this call, but we're going to focus in on Dave and Eric. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. And we really appreciate the the opportunity to be here today. You know, Eric, I think this is the biggest audience we've ever had for any of the shows that we've done. But as we prepared for today, we thought, why not execute our presentation just like we execute our Two Bald Guys show, which we do every week on Fridays. And of course, now my voice is getting scratchy. Hang on for just a sec. So with that, we would like to welcome you to a very special edition, a Rotary edition of Two Bald Guys, where we're going to take a sneak peek behind the scenes of the most famous, least known live stream show on the internet. My name is Dave Anderson, and I'm a senior policy fellow at the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, also known as WIPPS.
Thanks, Dave. And I don't know if you noticed Dave doing that was a fake cough. He was just trying to do a product placement for WIPPS. Did you notice that with the cup? Anyway, yeah, that was totally faked. Anyway, my name's Eric Giordano. I'm the executive director of WIPPS, and WIPPS is a unit of the University of Wisconsin system that was founded in 2007 with a mission to educate and engage citizens, develop future leaders, and bring the resources of the university to address community identified needs. Now, we are headquartered at the UW Stevens Point at Wausau campus. However, we're not technically part of that campus. I report to the office of the president of the UW system down in Madison. Now, I suspect that many of you, I know many of you on this call have heard about WIPPS, or maybe a few who haven't, but we thought it might be good to introduce just a few quick snapshot notes, just to give you a sense of kind of some of the things that we do. So since our founding in 2007, we've taken on about 200 student interns over the years. We currently oversee 2 high school leadership programs, one in the greater Wausau area involving about 45 students each year from 8 area high schools. And last year we launched in Portage County, the Portage County High School Leadership Program in partnership with the Portage County Business Council and several schools in Portage County. And this is a good time to just say that although I'm not going to mention all of our partners, we don't do anything without partnering with others. So with apologies to many of our partners, although I'm calling these WIPPS programs, in truth, they are true partnerships with other entities. We oversee a massive statewide program in partnership with many, many actors called College Goal Sunday, which, College Goal Wisconsin, which provides education and training for thousands of Wisconsin college students and their families each year to fill out the FAFSA form, and allows them to access federal funds and state funds for college. To put it in perspective, pre-COVID, we held about 40 face-to-face meetings with students and parents across the regions of Wisconsin. And this year we switched to holding over a dozen virtual events. And this past week, we saw about 86 families and 112 people participate with the assistance of 26 volunteers. In partnership with multiple local organizations, some of whom are in this room, we oversee an early childhood development program that's part of a national study on the effects of child literacy known as Lena Start. And in partnership with many local organizations, we initiated a project called the Hmong and Hispanic Network Project, which works with Spanish and Hmong speaking liaisons who are working in rural Marathon County and in the greater Wausau area to provide resources and information to vulnerable populations about staying safe in the COVID-19 environment and having access to resources. The goal is really beyond just COVID, though. It's to establish a trusted network for these populations that will continue beyond the pandemic. We've launched an active consulting arm that many of you may not know about called WIPPS Research Partners, which provides clients with a full spectrum of academic and technical resources from the University of Wisconsin system, using proven research methods and skill sets to help communities and government and businesses meet needs and nonprofits. Just a couple of examples. We recently produced a unique study based on focus groups with students in Marathon County. We noticed that with all the discussion about COVID and return to school, one voice that had been left out of the conversation was student voices. And so we did a series of focus groups with about 9 schools in the county. And the unique findings of those studies have translated into a new statewide project in partnership with the Department of Public Health Services, where we'll be interviewing students across the state of Wisconsin in every region to figure out how they're doing, what their experiences are at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And this just really barely scratches the surface of what we're up to at WIPPS. But as a final note, all of our programming at WIPPS is completely self-funded and self-sustaining. So we recently launched a Friends of WIPPS campaign. And so because I know it's important that when you start bragging about some things, you got to pony up some dollars. So here's my $5 contribution for allowing myself to talk about our WIPPS membership drive, which you're all welcome to donate to. And Debbie, just let me know where to send it. So I'll stop there. And Dave, I think we're really here though, right, as 2 bald guys. And a lot of people have asked us about the origins of this show. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and before I do that, Eric, I just want to point out that I've been taking notes in my WIPPS embossed pocket portfolio. And if you become a friend of WIPPS, you too can receive one of these. So I suppose I'm going to get fined for that too, but I'm more than happy to send in my $5. But Eric, thank you for the question. You know, one of the major thrusts of WIPPS, which Eric didn't talk about, is hosting what's really become a flagship program of WIPPS, which is a statewide conference on diversity and inclusion called Toward Wisconsin. We held our first conference last year in Milwaukee, and we had almost 500 attendees there. This year, COVID-19 forced us to reschedule our April conference from Green Bay to online, and it's going to be taking place in just a couple of weeks. We're actually expecting over 500 people to take part in that conference, and we've already started planning next year's conference, which we hope will be back in person again over in Eau Claire. So if you can imagine, when Eric and I started working on this project, we traveled the state of Wisconsin meeting with leaders of key minority organizations from one end of the state to the other, and other leaders in the diversity and inclusion area. And invariably, we'd sit down for these meetings, and the first thing we'd say is, I bet you're wondering why two bald white guys from Wausau are here to talk to you about diversity and inclusion. Thank goodness, usually the response was, you're exactly the kind of guys that we need to be talking to about diversity and inclusion. But that it kind of stuck with us. And when COVID-19 hit and we were brainstorming about ways that we could continue to get the WIPPS message out to the general public, such as it is, and let people know some of the things that we're engaged with, and continue to get involved in important public policy discussions, the notion of calling our show Two Bald Guys came into being, and that was really the birth of our show. So there you go, Eric. That's the story.
Well, the only thing, Dave, I mean, I agree with everything you've said, but I think you may have ignored the most important reason why we do the Two Bald Guys show, which is obviously to share our massive planetary-sized noggins with the world. And of course, those massive noggins equal massive brain power. So simply put, we felt a moral obligation to share our immense intelligence with our two loyal viewers, and now apparently with a few more. So the format of the show is pretty simple. We do a little lighthearted banner at the front end, but we quickly pivot to a timely topic in the news featuring people that have some state or national expertise in those topic areas. And the idea is to take about a half an hour or sometimes more to provide some information to our viewers about these timely issues in our state. And so I thought I'd just read a couple of examples of some of the show topics that we've done. Our first one was actually what the Spanish flu can teach us about coping with COVID. We've done a 7th congressional election preview. We've done a show on immigration. We've done what would Alexander say about COVID-19. We've done a show on being Black in America, policing in America, the Wisconsin Supreme Court decision to stay at home, about the stay-at-home order, criminal justice reform, freedom versus safety in the COVID-19 environment, why creativity and the creative economy still matter, national convention preview, creating welcoming communities, and a show about kids, K-12 kids and coronavirus. So, and there's many others, but just wanted to give you just a brief overview of that.
So to give you a little bit of a flavor of the show, we created a brief video montage of some of our special guests. And I think, Eric, you've got that queued up for people to take a look at. So take it away.
Here's what I want people to understand who are having a hard time understanding why financial security and gentrification and segregation is such a problem. I want you to imagine there being an Easter egg hunt, right? And imagine that, you know, me and Eric are telling Reggie, me and Eric are telling you, Reggie and Dave, we're getting ready to start picking eggs, but you can't pick eggs. We can't really tell you why other than because of who you are and how you look. For generations, me and Eric are picking eggs. We're passing eggs down in our families. And then finally, someone says, man, look, that's wrong what you're doing to Dave and what you're doing to Reggie. So then we say, all right, well, look, Dave, Reggie, you guys go ahead and start picking eggs. And then you become frustrated because you can't find any eggs, right? It's difficult for you to find them. And then we say, well, what's the problem? We're letting you pick eggs. Stop all that complaining. The problem is we have 100+ years of a deficit to catch up. That's not going to happen. You're telling me that African Americans shouldn't have stock, and some of the orange juice companies where black men and women died in the groves? You're telling me that we're having a problem understanding why we should get reparations when people died in the cotton fields, and you got Cottonelle and everyone else who use cotton products? I can continue to go on and on and on. So until we're having a real conversation about righting the wrongs and making sure that we are starting to educate a way out of this situation, we're going to be right back here again. Because let me also say this. 30 years ago, we had the first real true recording of police brutality in Los Angeles. A lot of people out here marching today, they were either not born or they were kids when we had Rodney King being beaten. If any time a conversation was needed in legislation and police immunity was needed to be changed, it was then the man was almost beaten to death. Yet we saw officers get off, we saw the community explode, we saw rioting, and you would have thought we would have took the time to fix the situation in, but we didn't. And we are right back here again. For African Americans, they are exhausted. This is the same movie. We got the same popcorn, the same drink, and we're sitting in the same chair watching this movie.
But I think one important thing for people to know about law enforcement is that every law enforcement agency in our country is different. We have the same underlying responsibilities to enforce laws and arrest criminals and investigate crimes, but we all have different histories of mayors and city councils and city ordinances. We have different beliefs about accountability. We have different philosophy of law enforcement. Leadership is different. So every law enforcement agency is different. And so I think it's really important that communities recognize that, communities get engaged, talk to your elected officials, talk to your chief of police or your sheriff, get to know what your local police department does in all of these different situations. What type of law enforcement philosophy do they have? So I think those are really critical things. And I'll just end with that. I will go to my grave supporting law enforcement. I have seen the unbelievable work that our law enforcement officers do every single day. They come here and they're serving our community in a tremendous way. They are making a positive impact in the quality of life of people here. And they have great hearts and they're good people. And I will go to my grave believing that. I will also go to my grave knowing that we can always do better.
And I'm not sure that this is unique just to the population we tend to serve, but of course, all of us wanted to help in any way we can, and so we were throwing things at them left and right, loans and grants. I mean, just even the difference between a loan and a grant was confusing, I think, for many folks. And then you start throwing things at them, hoping it's helpful. And sending them to different directions, and to SBA, WEDC, WDA, to us, to other chambers. And I think it became a little overwhelming. So, unless you live with this stuff every day, I think even the average person had a very difficult time. And so then you throw, for example, perhaps those who don't have as much education and know how to, read through some of this information. The financial, some of the businesses we work with don't have accountants. They keep their own, it's not even a laughing matter. We have actually seen profit and loss sheets on written paper just so that they can get some funding. And that was with us walking them through, what they needed in order to make that happen. So, we've seen that sort of thing. The disparities, I think, between those who know where to look and those who don't, those who have partnerships with businesses and financial institutions, that became very evident.
But the idea is, you know, when I came to the bench, I adopted this philosophy that it is far easier to build strong children than to prepare broken men and women. And that's from Frederick Douglass. And as a judge, I wanted to be able to make sure that when people come into the courtroom, that the systemic ways in which we deal with families and children, that they're being treated fairly and with kindness and compassion. No sooner than I took the bench, there were a couple of things that I noted that we weren't doing well. And so the system itself was reaped with all kinds of ways in which they saw people, they treated people. And as a judge, you know, you really have the responsibility of these cases to make a determination of how people are being treated. And based on how you respond, then that's how the attorneys then respond, and the people who come into the courtroom act to individuals who are there. So rather than trying to facilitate, you know, in getting the arguments about law, judges have a lot of discretion about a lot of things. And one of the things that I saw initially was the handcuffing of children, and that we were handcuffing children and bringing children to the courtroom without any reason as to why they were there. And it was such a solid practice that nobody wanted to change it. And so I started thinking about, well, it's far easier to build strong children than to prepare broken men. So what can we do as a system to reduce the amount of trauma that these traumatized children and families have already done? And why don't we take some steps to alleviate the burden that they feel when they come into court and anxiety? So we, you know, I led a campaign to remove all handcuffs off our children in Dane County. And you can imagine, I love sheriffs, but our local sheriffs at the time, you know, antennas went all off in their head. They were going ballistic, like, we can't do this. And, you know, they thought, you know, chaos was going to reign all over the place. They were putting pamphlets on my door talking about, you know, courtroom safety and giving examples of when stuff went crazy. But to your surprise, you know, to many surprise, when we went through that policy a couple of years ago, we've had 0 incidences of young people acting out or being violent as a result of us taking handcuffs off these kids in court. So, you know, my idea is reducing trauma, you know, making sure that the court system is effectively not just passing traumatized children from one system to the next. I don't even want my kids to even have to need Mr. Birdsall's representation. I'm trying to put him out of business. So.
Okay, we'll stop there. Just wanted to give you sort of a flavor of what we're up to.
You know, it's really hard to boil down some of the great guests that we've had, because we've had so many of them. And Eric, I think we're fortunate to have had some really knowledgeable, insightful, inspirational, and thought-provoking guests in the course of doing this show over the last several months. Not to mention people that are good humored and fun to be with. While we've addressed a variety of topics, obviously the topics revolving around race in America have been pretty timely topics. Not just for other parts of the country, but for us here in Wisconsin. So we've done a fair amount of coverage to that particular subject. But it's really been great to do this. And Eric, I don't want to speak for you on this point, but I have to say some of the topics that we've tackled have been a little uncomfortable. And our approach here is not to be confrontational and in your face and to be divisive. Our purpose here is to really engage in a high level, thoughtful conversation on important issues to give people something to think about. Eric, back to you.
Yeah, Dave, as wonderful as some of our guests have been, and I absolutely agree with everything you just said, I do think our friends at Rotary deserve to know the real reason for the incredible success of our show and why our 2 loyal viewers have remained so loyal. And by the way, I do know we have 2 loyal viewers because one of them we pay. He's our producer, Luke Rudolph, and the other is my mother. So I know for sure we have 2. So I'm going to show you another video that I think explains a little bit better the popularity of our show and why it's so popular. So bear with me 1 second. All right, can you guys see that background?
Now, some of you might say, you know, your humor is childish, it's silly, my spouse for one. But, you know, we believe that we need to celebrate the beauty and wisdom that has been bestowed upon us.
I couldn't agree with you more, Eric. So let's boldly go where no man has gone before.
Did you know that being this bald, there's a tremendous amount of pressure in buying my next bottle of shampoo? Because basically I realize it's going to be a lifetime supply. So
I just don't want to get us into a hairy situation.
yeah, speaking of buzz, Dave, what did you do with your hair? It looks terrific.
I hope you two are together doing this show for a long time. The last thing we need is for the two bald guys to have a split end.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. As a bald guy, I like to walk into barbershops, and when they ask if they can help, I just say, no thanks, I'm just looking, and then I walk out.
Hey, Eric, I want to give you something to think about for next week, and I'll be looking for an answer when we get back on the air here. So when you wash your face, exactly how far up do you go? So think about that and get back to me next week.
But it does remind me of something my mother used to say. She'd say, Eric, dear son, that's what she called me, dear son, I think it's really fantastic that God has been good to you. He gave you a handsome face and room for another one.
Well, you're absolutely right, Eric. No one can say that we don't run a tight clip here.
Wow, that is a pretty hair-raising story, Dave.
Eric, it's here that I would normally insert my own funny hair joke or something that I thought would be a funny hair joke. But I really want to address something in my moment here that I think is a much more serious problem, and that is the future of the U.S. airline industry. As you know, COVID-19 has hit airlines particularly hard, causing a decline in the number of people flying, a decline in the number of flights, a decline in revenues for the industry. Eric, I would argue if you take a look at any airline today, any air travel company at all, you could actually call it a receding airline.
Yeah, I overheard my spouse talking on the phone the other day to one of our children, and I quote, "Your father is busy preparing for his sophomoric dad humor show." And, you know, it really took me aback when I heard that, because it was hard to take in that after 30 years of marriage, my wife finally understands me.
I'm not saying you're going bald, but you'll find Waldo before you'll actually find your airline. Doesn't bother me to say that to you at all.
You know, Dave, since you're only as good as your last haircut, I think it's fair to say that you've pretty much reached perfection.
But as part of our effort to raise funds through our WIPPS Friends program, I actually did a head shave on Tuesday night.
Dave, what do you mean you did a head shave?
Oh, no, I don't mean I didn't shave my head, but was my wife ever mad when she woke up on Wednesday morning and looked in the mirror?
Oh, well, Dave, just in parting, I have a moral conundrum for you. And you and I have had the pleasure of sharing some repas, that's French for meal, on occasion. And I think you and June even cooked for me once. So let's say you're over at my house eating a bowl of soup and you discover a hair in the soup. Now, a privileged hair person would shrug it off and even maybe joke to his host, "Oh, I think this is one of my hairs that got in the soup." But being a hair challenged person, Dave, I don't think that would be very credible. So what would you do if you found a hair in some soup that I offered you? Would you pull it out of the soup and potentially embarrass me and your hosts? Would you just continue eating and pretend it wasn't there? And by the way, how would this whole episode make you feel? Isn't it sort of like a giant double gut punch from the universe? A bald man finding a hair in his soup?
Called out to you and said, "Hey, look at that guy. He's worked on his hair all afternoon to get ready for tonight's show, and then he forgot it at home."
Bald Bill is so bald, you can see what's on his mind.
By the way, Dave, you've been discussing, I've noticed, in several of our shows, your travails at your favorite barbershop.
And you know, Eric, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I get my hair cut in Madison. My barber down there is a great source of information on what's going on. But he told me that there's a lot of people in his profession that have also taken up taxi driving. Do you know why that is? Have we talked about this?
No.
They know all the shortcuts. And you know, Eric, I'm always reminded when we do this show about my barber in Madison. Stu, I still go to Madison to get my haircut, believe it or not. Every time I'm in my barber's chair, he reminds me that he's a barber and not a magician, and that his comb isn't a magic wand. So, and speaking of my barber in Madison, I still go to Madison to get my haircut, although it's been a while since I've been down there. You know, I asked him one time, why do I have to pay the same amount of money to get my haircut that everybody else has to pay when I have less hair to cut? And you know what he told me, Eric? He said, you know, Dave, he said, you're not paying me to cut your hair, you're paying me to find it. That's what he told me.
Okay. All right. This can go on forever, and I'm sure you would like that, but we'll have to spare you.
Eric, I probably shouldn't mention this, but I did notice the other day that you still carry a comb. You just can't part with it, right? Oh.
Oh. Wow. I really thought you were going to spare our friends at Rotary. Dave, you know, COVID's been really tough on a lot of people. It's kind of swelled the ranks of the unemployed. And sadly, your jokes, like these unfortunate people, aren't working. So despite that, Dave, I want you to know how much I've really enjoyed doing the show with you every week. And speaking of our show, Dave, what does Two Bald Guys have in store for next week?
Well, thanks, Eric. And our show this coming Friday, October 30th at noon, will be The November Election is Finally Here, or something like that. It's going to be an election preview with the chairman of the Republican Party of Wisconsin, Andrew Hitt, as well as Jason Ray, who's from Wisconsin, but serves as the secretary of the Democratic National Committee. And the two of them are going to be talking about hot races to watch, not only here in Wisconsin, but across the country. So we hope that all of you will catch our show and number yourselves along with our two loyal viewers to experience an incredible experience with the Two Bald Guys. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions, or if you've got any hair puns or jokes you want to share. We're always looking for better ideas than the ones we've had ourselves. So thanks a lot for having us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I feel like I need to say something like, they're here all week, don't forget to tip the waitresses, or something like that.
That's right.
Any questions for our Two Bald Guys?
Eric and Dave, this is John. Before we part company, so to speak, I thank you for the work you've done. I've had the pleasure of tuning in to be maybe at least a third viewer on several of your shows. And quite frankly, they have been extremely impactful and insightful. And maybe you can let people know how they can find them. I think even after they're broadcast live, I think it'd be great for people to have a chance to run back and take a look. And, you know, the normal duration is what, 20, 30 minutes. So it's not a huge commitment of time, but I was extremely impressed by any number of the special guests you had. And it's very impressive. So thanks for what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, you can actually, maybe the easiest way to find it is you can go to our Facebook page, WIPPS.org Facebook page, or if you go to the WIPPS.org website, and just in the search box, if you type in Two Bald Guys, that will take you to the archives page. And you can find all of the previously aired episodes.
Great question.
Other questions? Can I ask a little bit of, you don't have to go into all the gory details, but funding for Wisconsin Institute of Public Policy and Service, can you give us a little insight into that?
Just a reminder that if you become a friend of WIPPS, you can get a nice embossed WIPPS folder, or depending upon the level, we also have an incredible, nicely done WIPPS thermos. So
that covers one of these Two Bald Guys shows. I want to know about how the rest of them are funded. How's that?
I'll let Eric answer that.
Yeah, it's like I was telling someone earlier. I think it was Brad. You know, when Dave and Brad were trying to hook up. Dave wants to get Brad involved with somebody. So we'll just beware, because Dave pays in fake news and fake dollars. So that's kind of how we fund our show. We don't have any funding for the show. We frankly just did it probably because of COVID and looking for an excuse to be somewhat relevant in a really difficult situation. And frankly, we just started enjoying it so much that every week I'm just really like anticipating what horrible joke I'm going to hear from Dave, so that's why I keep going. But honestly, WIPPS is self-funding with all of our programming. So, you know, a lot of our funding comes from grant dollars, donations, sponsorships, and membership drive, obviously, as we've mentioned. And I think I'm forgetting one big thing. Oh, through our WIPPS Research Partners arm, we don't do the research for free. We operate sort of like a public consulting firm, if you will, and so we receive contracts for the work that we do through research, and that's frankly how we, as I like to tell people, we you know, try to raise dollars doing certain things like this consulting work in order to, you know, actually put on the programs that we really care about. Things like the H2N project, where we're trying to bring information and public safety information to Hmong and Hispanic communities in Wisconsin. This is not an easy sell, you know, to do that kind of thing. And so we rely on the generosity of partners, sponsors, and other dollars that we're able to raise. So thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, I guess you had mentioned that it was self-funded, and as you said that, I said, oh yeah, you did say that, but that's a helpful context for me. Thanks, Amy. Okay, well, that brings us to 1 o'clock by my clock. So we will end our meetings as we always do with the 4-way test, and Dr. Dodson has graciously volunteered to lead us out the door that way. Thanks again to Dave and Eric for attending our meeting today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to both of our guest speakers. That was fabulous. So, of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a great week, everyone.